Hey everyone, my fellow gamers, just did this for my computer science class, but I've made 5 for you too, so I'm really excited about this. I went all out for this last review. So this is the last hint you're getting for your midterm, so if you haven't taken it yet, then hey, maybe this will push you over the top. These are really good. I worked really, really hard on your review, so here's 5 of the middle of the road difficulty concepts from this first semester. So let's just jump right in. Materials. This is one of my favorites. So the word materials in game design has been getting thrown around a lot, and a lot of people don't exactly know what it means. So a material is very similar to a material in real life. See, that's a blanket. A blanket is always made out of some kind of material. I don't know what kind. But a blanket's a good way to think of material. We can take a blanket and we can lay it over something, and then that something looks like the material that we put on it. Now the only difference in game design is that it always perfectly covers it. Unless we go in and edit it, it's going to perfectly cover the object that we put it on. So that's how you can think about a material. You can create any kind of material you want. You can create one that looks like sand, one that looks like grass, or one that looks just like a simple color. You can take that and apply it to any object in the game, and it's going to cover it. And it's really, really cool. So we'll get deeper into that as the year goes on, but for now, just know that material is pretty much anything you can drag across something, right? This one, scope. So you see this word in game design and you don't really think about, you're like, oh, it has nothing to do with a real scope, right? Well, actually it kind of does. So scope is basically, I'll just show you in the picture. So this guy has a tiny little scope, all right? This game he's playing here too has just a tiny little scope. This is like Tetris. Tetris has a very small scope, all right? It's not covering much material. It's just covering just that one concept, that one puzzle concept. Now, there are Tetris games out there that have storylines, and that expands the scope of the game. But for the most part, you're just covering one single concept. Now, the difference, however, is like a Final Fantasy game or any RPG game for that matter. Most of the time, they're not just covering the story of the characters. They're covering a lot of stuff. Like maybe there's an open world, maybe there's side quests, maybe there's probably a physics system. There's some kind of system to manipulate like how the bodies works in the game. I mean, I don't know. But yeah, this is pretty important. So the scope of your game is basically just how much stuff your game is covering. It's just a big umbrella term for how much stuff your game is covering. And honestly, in this class, what you all started out on your game design document, you probably started out with a huge scope. Oh, I'm going to make like the next RPG. But what you realize is in the time frame and the tools you have, maybe you need to narrow your scope a little bit. I'm really proud of the next one too. This one, and I'll give you a second to guess. So this is a country right here. And this is another country right here, and they're battling each other. That's water right there. So yeah, so let's talk about this one. So this has to do with turns, and this is something we didn't really talk about a lot in class, but it was pretty highlighted in the OHS, is the idea of turns and what type of turns we're going to put in our game. Now, most games nowadays are what we call free turns. Free turns are basically where anyone can move at any time. Anyone can move at any time and pretty much in any way that they want, and as long as they want. For example, these are games like Call of Duty or Halo. Like first-person shooters are usually free turns. You're not taking turns. It's just, I'm going to come up, and if I shoot your guy first, I win. So that's kind of like free turns, okay? But there are other concepts out there, like player turns. Now, we used to do war like this, actually, which is kind of weird to think about. But we actually kind of used to use player turns in war, like back in Civil War days. So basically, player turns are basically when you take turns with other players. Whenever you're saying, okay, look, I'll go first, then you go. Then I'll go, then you go. And the rules for these turns are usually pretty specific, all right? They're very like if you want to look up Final Fantasy or pretty much any old school RPG, this is how the games work. They go, then you go, okay? So player turns, free turns. There's a couple other concepts out there. So, look up different turn mechanics and see if you understand all those. Mechanics. So this is a really interesting one. This seems like such a simple concept, right? Mechanics. Game mechanics equal how things move, right? And that's very true. But one thing I wanted to highlight that I think a couple of you are missing is that game mechanics don't necessarily always match real world mechanics. So, and you know this if you've played any game like Sonic or Destiny or any of these games that really bend the physics that we see in real life every day. So, for example, mechanics. Normally, in real life, this gear turns this way. This is really hard to do on the camera. And this gear turns this way, right? Because they lock and they turn one way. But in your game, if you define mechanics as the opposite, meaning that anytime this thing spins, this way, then this one would also spin that way. That's your game mechanics, okay? So it does not have to match real life physics. It does not at all. Game mechanics are how you, the game designer, define how things move in your game. They're very, very important too, because this is how we add a lot of depth to our game, by manipulating the mechanics. This is a really good one too. I'm really proud of this one. So Twitch, what some of you still think is just a website where you can host your gaming, which is true, yeah, but you don't realize that a lot of people, that website gets its name from something called a Twitch skill. And Twitch skills are what gamers have, okay? This is one of the skills that gamers possess. So this is me, and I throw a ball at my sister. So I'm throwing this ball at my sister, and at the last second, she throws up her hand and blocks it. That is a Twitch skill, okay? It's something that we do very quickly. It's reactive. It's very fast. And gaming, and actually a lot of the most exciting games out there really use these Twitch skills to their advantage, okay? Games like StarCraft, and actually, see, StarCraft is a game that has a lot of strategy, a lot of planning, but the Twitch skills are what really set apart like the good gamers from the great gamers, all right? Making those really quick decisions. And you know, first-person shooters, games like that as well, all really try to employ as many Twitch skills as they can. They give you that excitement. They make you feel like you're doing something, you know, like you're building a certain skill, which you are. Last one. This has been getting a lot of people confused, and I want to make sure that I highlight this one more time, even though I've highlighted it so many times already. Randomness. Randomness, we all know what randomness means, right? Randomness is whenever there's an infinite number of possibilities, and most of you, that just surprised you, an infinite number of possibilities, and an infinite number of outcomes, and we have no idea what's going to happen, okay? That is randomness. That does not exist in game design. It doesn't, not yet. We don't have the computing power, the capabilities to do this, and I mean, you might argue that we never will because numbers are infinite, so true randomness is just not true, okay? However, pseudo-randomness is a thing. So pseudo-randomness is randomness within a set number of possibilities. For example, and my best example to remember this by are dice. So there are two-sided dice. If you didn't know there was a two-sided dice, look that up. There are two-sided dice. There are three-sided dice, which are really cool. You should check those out. I actually have a necklace with a three-sided dice on it because it's really neat. And there are six-sided dice. Now, if you play Dungeons & Dragons, you know there's 16, there's 32, there's 64, there's 100. There's a lot of different dice out there. But we use the same concepts in game design. We set it's not a parameter, but we set a boundary line for random numbers. So, for example, and I used this example earlier in the year. Let's say that you were playing a game, a realistic shooter game, and every once in a while your gun jammed. And you were like, wow, that's really cool. I mean, that seems so real. That seems like real life. But it's not. There is a certain amount of times that your gun will fire, okay, and then the jam will occur. All right, there's a certain percentage that your gun will jam on every single fire of the gun, right? Now, maybe that percentage changes, but that's still pseudo-randomness. It's still within a percentage. It's not perfect randomness, okay? Which is really cool. So anyway, just know that, all right? Randomness, infinite number of possibilities. Pseudo-randomness is random within a set criteria set by the game designer, okay? So the biggest concept of the first semester, the biggest concept this whole year, is that games, and this is going to seem so simple, I just said it in my head before I'm about to say it out loud. Games are what you make them, okay? So don't get too caught up in things like physics and mechanics and randomness and like how to set the... Games are what you make them. Your games will become whatever you want them to. And it's very important to know that it's just like creating a new world, okay? You're defining everything about that world. And so we're giving you the tools slowly and surely in this class to getting to that point to where you can create your own world completely. So for the second semester, my challenge to you, after you take your midterm and you do great on it because I just helped you and you did your Quizlet and all this great stuff and you studied the OHS, is that you completely take your minds out of the box, okay? Really take your minds out of the box and just really go crazy with what you're trying to do in your game. Most of you, I would say, and this is the last thing I'll say, I promise I'll let you go. 9 out of 10, if not maybe more than that, maybe like 19 out of 20 students who sent me submissions for their final project all did the same physics. All of you did the physics that were, and I did this too in my walkthrough, but that's because it was a walkthrough. Your physics were exactly like the real world. That's what you were thinking. You wanted your physics to mimic the real world, and that's fine if that's where your game's going. But don't be afraid to get a little crazy with it, okay? Don't be afraid to change it up. So anyway, good luck on your midterm exam, everyone. I hope that you do well. I know you all will. Please reach out to me if you need any help. Until then, I am testing this week. Remember, still testing, so it's going to be real. It's going to take me some time to get the emails, but I appreciate your time, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.